everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Movie Battleground. We have so much alliteration in this match for you today. That's right. We have two very great fighters going up against one another. Introducing first, we have Grant, the comic book lad Gregory. Grant, how are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing quite well. Happy to be part of a match again. I've had a couple of judging ones and one match, so this will be my second match. And it seems every time I'm on here, Kirk's on here as well. It was sooner or later we're gonna face off against each other, and yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Good strong words. Sound excited. And let's get to our second component. Thank you for being the only one who laughed at my alliteration joke. It is Kirk Kowalkowski. How are we doing, Kirk?
I'm doing all right, Nick. Thanks for having me on again today. Really excited for this match. Been looking forward to this for a while. It's my second match. Looking at my second win here in Battleground. I got my eyes on the prize. Looking for that title. I'm eyeing down Cody down the road, and taking on Grant here. He's a good competitor, but right now he's in the way, and I got to get him out of the way and move on.
And there we have it, a very determined Kirk ready to fight today. But before we get to the fight, I need to introduce our panel of judges. Introducing first a familiar judge. You've seen her before. It's Andrea Malabag. Andrea, how you doing?
I'm doing great. By the way, alliterations are awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah. And this is going to be one hell of a fight, and I look forward to it.
All right. And our second judge, we got Ryan Payne. Ryan, how excited are you?
I'm really excited. I'm glad that I'm not the competitor, so it's going to be good to judge once again, so I don't have to waste half an hour trying to get a point across.
Couldn't agree more, my friend. All right, and before we get started, just a quick explanation of the rules. Each player is going to be given a question, and they will each have a choice, and they have to argue their choice against the other player. They will get a 90-second opening, and then there will be a time period of 5 minutes where each player can go back and forth at each other, throw as many jabs as you can, and then each player will have a 60-second closing. But each player does have a minute extension for the 5-minute debate round that you can use at the beginning of any round you choose. You don't have to use it at all, but it is there if you wish to use it. So if there are no other things to go, is everyone ready to go?
Let's do it.
Perfect. All right, the first fight. The question is, what is the best crime movie of the 1990s? Yes, the decade I was born, a very great decade. And we are going to start with Grant. Grant, please.
All right, so the movie that I picked is Fargo. You want me to start my argument now, then?
You got a 90-second opening.
Okay, great. Reason I picked Fargo. I think Fargo is the perfect embodiment of a crime film. It has the people who are the good people, it has people who are clearly the bad people. There's a huge diversity when it comes to the shittiness of crime, and the whole main focus is about how a person can get in way too deep over crime. He's not a career criminal. He's just looking to do something a little bit better. And for me, having a character like that, being able to see both sides of it, shows the toll that crime has on a person, especially on a small town such as Fargo. And overall, I'll get into it a bit more, but the performances are really unique. It spawned its own TV series, so it's definitely a transcending sort of film. And yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Good strong opening from Grant, and we're going to move right along to Kirk. Kirk, whenever you begin, 90 seconds will start.
Okay, if we're going to talk about the best crime film of the 90s, there's only really one right answer. I mean, we have in the 90s not only one of the best crime films, but one of the best films ever made, and that is Goodfellas. Goodfellas is the magnum opus of a master storyteller, master visual storyteller who is a master of telling crime stories. Martin Scorsese, his career, everything he did from the 70s up, built to this moment. This is the peak and the culmination of everything he'd done before. And it is just an epic story of a life of crime. It is a story of the American dream gone wrong. It has everything. It has an amazing cast, acting, a fantastic script, fantastic direction, fantastic soundtrack that adds the story and helps to inform the story that's being told. Shows every aspect, the good, the bad, every range of emotion. Just a fantastic film. And except for maybe a few films, which also are considered some of the greatest of all time, this is definitely one of the best crime movies ever told.
All right. 2 strong openings. And it took me quite a while to figure out how to spell Scorsese, but when you two are ready, please begin. 5 minutes will begin once one of you starts talking.
Grant, some of the things you brought up, you brought up the diversity of crime, different types of crime. You talked about seeing a character getting way too deep. I think that describes Goodfellas more than anything. You see in Goodfellas, I mean, the thing about Fargo is it's almost a slice of life crime story. You have one story about this crime, this caper that's being carried out, and it goes from point A to point B. Where with Goodfellas, you have the story of Henry Hill starting with his, petty life of crime, going up to his growth in the mafia. You don't only have his stories; you have Tommy's, you have everybody else. You have a lot of smaller characters, side characters like Spider, the gentleman who owned the restaurant, Sonny. You have Maury, the wig shop owner, and you have all these different people, and you see their different takes and the way that the life of crime has impacted them. So if we're talking about seeing a diversity of crime, I think Goodfellas gets the point there. And like I said, as far as going way too deep, you see that with Henry Hill. You see the beginning when he's a kid and everything's great. You see, he's living this life up. His family's getting respect.
Everything was great as a kid. He was poor as a kid. I think the main thing about it is the question is the best film. While I do enjoy it, I wouldn't exactly say the way in which it's laid out is a complete film. It's many sequences masterfully done, but it's more an exercise in stylistic endeavor and cinematography than it is a complete overall story. The movie itself is fine. I just don't think it when it comes to its main things, it is a complete film from start to finish. When it comes to the diversity, I was talking about the diversity in crime. I was talking about someone from the straight level who is not a criminal, who does something wrong. He never tries to be a criminal, but ends up being a criminal. That's when it comes to diversity. It's about seeing the different characters. And yes, it is one small thing. It is a nice tight slice living package, but that's why it works. It works from start to finish. You can follow it all the way along. You know which character to root for, which character not to root for. And that's why I think definitely when it comes to Fargo, it is a much better film overall than a viewing experience, which is what Goodfellas is. Especially, you got tracking zoom shots of the scenes and everything like that, but they're great. But that doesn't add to the overall story.
I'll disagree with you on a couple points there. First of all, Goodfellas is a complete film. It may not feel that way on one viewing because it is so dense and there's so much gravity to it that there's so much going on, but it tells at least one very complete story, if not several others, when you look at all the other characters. The other point I'll get you on there, I do believe the cinematography and the zoom shots, everything, that does add to the story being told. I mean, it starts out, you have that famous tracking shot going through the Copa over the shoulder, and you see the glitz and the glamour of that life and how Karen's getting sucked into it and how attractive that life can be. And that's seen through that shot over their shoulder. Then you have those shots at the end with the helicopters and the paranoia, and you see what their life has become. And you see that visually, the way the story's been told with those quick zooms and those wipes and everything. The visual aspects and the visual storytelling very much do lend itself to the storytelling. The camera is almost a character in this movie, and so I do feel very much so that the visual aspects are very important and do add to the overall film.
Well, when it comes to the visual aspects of it, you're saying that it's sucking him in. It's in fact doing the opposite. It's widening the background. It's a moving to a wider lens. So when you're saying it's sucking him in, I think it does the opposite. It doesn't suck him in and makes him look much smaller. So I don't understand that point.
Well, I mean, it's showing them. It's showing that you're getting literally over the shoulder in that scene. You're getting their view. You're seeing why this life looks so great to them.
1 minute, guys. 1 minute.
One thing else I'd like to bring up here is the fact that Fargo is more of a dark comedy, and I feel a lot of the criminal elements are undercut by the comedic elements. I mean, you have those overemphasized accents, and you have a lot of situations when the wife's being kidnapped and her situation, which is a very tragic situation. It's almost played for laughs. And like I said, with the accents,
I mean, if you found someone getting burnt, shot in the head, and putting a wood chipper funny, that's on you. That's not about the film. Life, there is beauty and there is a bit of comedy in something that is dark. It's not a dark comedy. The accents are a little over the top.
Those accents are a definite choice by the Coen brothers to lighten the tone of that movie. And I mean, there's as far as you get humor in Goodfellas too. You get humor. You get all.
If it's a dark film, that means that something that's really dark.
But it undercuts the feeling, the feeling of what's going on there.
Time.
All right. Great job. You'll each have 60 seconds to make your closing arguments. And since Grant opened this up, I'm going to have Kirk close us out first. So, Kirk, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I feel like I said that Goodfellas is the perfect crime movie. It is larger in scope than Fargo, but we can't take it away from that. I mean, are we going to knock Goodfellas for being, or Godfather for being large in scope? It is a big movie. It's an epic movie. There is drama, there's comedy, everything, but you get every aspect of that life within this. Like Grant said, you see this one sad sack in Fargo who's kind of trying to stumble his way through crime. In this, you get inside their heads, you see these characters and the life, the good and the bad, the funny and the sad. You see everything in there with Martin Scorsese's fantastic direction, that amazing soundtrack that adds the story and also tells the story through the music, changes throughout. And yeah, it is just a great crime movie. And yeah, Goodfellas.
Okay, I agree with you when you say The Goodfellas is a great crime film, but the question isn't it was great, which is better. Fargo is better. It delves way more deeper into what's going on, and it shows how someone can get pulled in. Yeah, you may disagree, but that's fair enough. That's why we're here. The sound work of Fargo is on par. I don't think either one of them is better, and I think we're kind of be splitting hairs on own personal taste when it comes to the sound. Fargo shows a complete story from A to Z, all the way through there. You know exactly what's going on, and there is that tragic beauty, comedic sort of undertones to it that just shows that life sometimes is just fucking weird.
You're damn right it is. All right. Great fight, you two. We are going to go to our judges. Remember, you need 2 out of 3 points to get the point for this round, and we're going to go to Andrea first. Andrea, tell me your thoughts.
Man, this is a tough one to judge, actually. Sheesh. Okay. Based on the arguments, I'm going back and forth. I would have to say that I'm gonna have to go with Kirk, because he was able to provide me with more points on what makes his film better than Grant. So I'm gonna have to give my point to Kirk on this one.
All right, we got one for Kirk. Ryan, let me hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, my point's going to Kirk too. Kirk just gave more elements. He gave more positives why this is a good crime movie. Grant did a good job with Fargo, really giving you a very self-contained story, but felt most of the time they were punching back and forth. So if Grant had gave me more positives, or at least more elements, then I would have been leaning more towards Grant. But Kirk he came out swinging.
We have Kirk with 1. Grant still looking to get on the board as we move into our second question. So, gentlemen, the second question is, what is the best performance by an actor or actress in a musical from the last 10 years? So from 2009 to 2019. We started with Grant last time. So, Kirk, whenever you're ready.
I picked a performance from a movie that is not without its problems, but is definitely the best and most memorable thing to come out of that movie, and it is something really, truly great and beautiful. I went with Anne Hathaway in the 2000 whatever version was of Les Mis, Les Miserables. Her performance in that movie is just breathtaking. I'll throw my cards on the table here. I am not a fan of Anne Hathaway. I was not excited to see her cast in that movie. I'm never excited to see her cast in anything. I went and saw that, and she blew me away, just like she did everybody else. I mean, her performance, she doesn't have a huge part in the movie, but she does have a very crucial part in the movie. Her elements of it kind of set the stage, and she does it fantastic. I've seen this role played on stage, on film, many different ways. Never seen anyone do it as great as her. Her singing, her vocal performance is just mind-blowing, and her acting is really good too. She goes first as the single mother trying to take care of her kid and desperate to do so, and all the bad things happen to her. I don't think there's anything in this decade that tops what she did as far as musicals go, what she did in Les Mis.
All right, Kirk with a very strong opening and some slight shade thrown towards Anne Hathaway, but we will overcome it, and let's hear what Grant has to say. Grant, whenever you start talking.
All right, so I picked O'Shea Jackson Jr. from Straight Outta Compton. It's not your typical standardized musical performance. We're talking about a guy who doesn't have the acting resume of Anne Hathaway, doesn't have all the musical skills and everything in comparison to his father, but transcended everything in that. He was the best version of his father, even better than his father was in it. The guy was able to bring a level of authenticity and genuineness. And this might be a small gripe. He was actually in the film for longer than 14 minutes and 22 seconds. So I think that's definitely a good point at that. And I'll go into a bit more detail in a minute.
All right. This is going to be a heated one, I can tell already. So, gentlemen, whenever you're ready, 5 minutes, unless anyone wants to use their minute extension. All good? All right, please begin.
Well, the first question I have to ask, we're talking about best musical performance, and I'm assuming we are discussing both acting and singing. But when you share DNA and were raised by the person that you're portraying on film, are you really giving a performance, or are you just imitating somebody you know very well? I think
acting is imitating. So I mean that point's null and void to begin with, whether you know that person or not. If you grew up reading Shakespeare and everything like that, and then acted as Shakespeare in a thing, you know that person as well as anyone else, sort of thing. So I think that point's kind of mute. Whether
anyone else, I don't know, because if it's different if it's somebody in your family. If you're just being your dad, I mean, it's almost like playing yourself. It's like, okay, I just got to do whatever. But that point aside, I think really all he did was an imitation. I mean, he just sat there and he sang and he did the kind of like hard Ice Cube face. And I don't think his performance, although, I mean, we're not talking about longest performance in musical, we're talking about best performance in musical. So I think your point about the time kind of goes out the window as well. But I think as far as his performance, I think he was overshadowed very much by Courtney Hawkins as Dr. Dre and Jason Mitchell as Easy. I think they both gave better performances in this movie. Whereas Anne Hathaway, you look at her, she's definitely the best thing. She's the standout. She's what everybody talks about, even though she was only 14 minutes in the movie.
But being the Chinese piece of shit in the sidewalk doesn't make you the best thing there. Like, I mean, it's easy to shine when you've got someone like Russell Crowe singing. I don't even want to call it singing. He made that film. He put here's the easiest way of looking at it. There was that much of a backlash that he didn't get a nomination, that people were boycotting the Oscars. People were boycotting it because of that.
I didn't hear any backlash about him not getting a nomination. I thought there's backlash about F. Gary Gray not getting nominated and some of the other actors. I didn't hear anybody looking for his nomination because, I said, other than
your research is your research. That's how you do it. That's fine.
Other than the fact that it was stunt casting. And Ice Cube later admitted that it was nepotism that got him the part. That was what people talked about. It wasn't his performance like, oh, look, it's Ice Cube's kid playing Ice Cube. How neat is that? There wasn't anything like, wow, he really blew us away with his performance. Like, oh, he looks like him because it's his kid. And again, I think Corey Hawkins, Jason Mitchell, bringing themselves to those roles did a lot better. Second thing here, let's talk about the music. All the research I could find was that all the rapping done was both a mix of original NWA music and the cast. So when you say he's giving the best musical performance, any point you point to in that movie, you don't know if you're really hearing him or not. It could be the original Ice Cube track.
So it doesn't matter
it
whether
definitely
he has
matters because we're
help or
talking
not.
about best performance in a musical. So
Yeah, best
the
performance.
music,
It's not, it's not who's the best
Yeah.
singer. It's not who was the best singer.
Oh,
It's the best
it
performance.
definitely is.
Yeah.
The singing definitely comes into play here because we're talking about a musical. Where
So
Anne
because someone
Hathaway,
else
that
is a
scene where
part
she
of it,
sings,
therefore he can't do it.
when she sings "I Dreamed a Dream," that was the most amazing thing. The fact that she brings on all that emotion through that song. And I've talked to actors, they've told me that singing through emotion and tears like that and hitting those notes she does live on the set. She was singing that live. That wasn't another singer. That wasn't pre-recorded. That was her singing that song on set as you see it. She brings through all those emotions.
That's absolute rubbish. It was all filmed in a sound studio. She might have been able to physically do something like that singing, but the stuff that you're hearing is
She
not
was
live.
everything in that movie is a live performance. She's saying led live. She brought all that emotion. She brought that anger, that rage, that hope, that sadness. Everything that comes up in that song is her. That's her. You cannot say the same about O'Shea Jackson. You don't know when he's singing. Again, we're talking about, and we could talk about the fact that you really didn't pick a musical. The fact you really didn't pick a musical, so but the fact we're still talking about musical performance, so we have to talk about his singing, and we don't know where we're hearing him sing or not. We could be hearing 50% of that, 70% of that could be old Ice Cube tracks.
And it's
still
better music and still better performance than what Anne Hathaway does.
1 minute, guys.
Oh, absolutely not.
Minute.
That's ridiculous. I mean, all he's doing is he's doing a concert film. He's sitting there lip syncing, pretending to be his dad. To say that's better than what she brought to that role. Everything she brought out of herself.
Absolutely, it's better.
My gosh! I mean, that's your opinion. If that's are you kidding? Everybody talks about Anne Hathaway and Les Mis. Nobody talks about O'Shea Jackson.
Yes,
he's the second banana now. You know what O'Shea Jackson is now? He's the oh damn guy. He's the guy in every movie he plays side character goes, oh damn. That's all he does. He has not done anything beyond that
other
movie.
films, which has no bearing on.
He's
on
a throw. Well, if he did so great here, if they were calling for his Oscar nomination, why isn't he a big star now? He's a side character in everything he does. He's a throwaway character in Godzilla. That's all he is now.
Anne Hathaway played a drunk in another movie. What? They have no relevance with each other.
Because you're telling me what a great role this was for him. Why didn't he take off?
It was a fantastic role. It was the best performance.
Time, guys, time.
Time. All right. Wow. Great arguing. Really fun to watch. We're going to go to our 60-second closings. Kirk, since you opened up, Grant, whenever you're ready, your 60-second closing will begin when you start talking.
Right, O'Shea Jackson nails the role. You're basically saying that, he's just doing an imitation. I hate to break it to you, Kurt. That's acting. Sure, he had a good slate to start with. He knew what was going on. He knew the manner. He was the most method actor that did. I mean, if Anne Hathaway character was based off a real life person that was still around, and I said those arguments to you, you'd be saying the same thing back to me. Your point about him just being an imitation is moot. There's no more substance to that. He was the best performance. It was his first film. His very first film that he was in there, and he killed it. The music in there brought a new generation of people into NWA. I don't see a lot of people going on about, Les Mis is the thing that really got me into that sort of music. It was relevant. It's not your classical standardized style of musical, and that's why his performance was much better. He couldn't do a standardized classical based performance because it wasn't that sort of movie.
Time. All right, great closing, Grant. Kirk, whenever you're ready, 60 seconds.
Yeah, you're right. It's not that kind of movie because you really didn't pick a musical, but that's neither here nor there. No offense to you, Grant, but if you think O'Shea Jackson's acting in Straight Outta Compton is better than Anne Hathaway in Les Mis, that's just nuts. Because I mean, her performance, what she brings out of herself, O'Shea Jackson did not have the kind of demands on himself in that movie. All it says, go be your dad, go act like your dad, go make that hard face, go rap sometimes, go lip sync sometimes. We don't know which is which. But the music definitely has a bearing on this because it is a musical performance, and her singing that we know is 100% her just blows anything he does out of the water. The music brought back NWA because it was NWA music. It had nothing to do with O'Shea Jackson. Could have any actor lip syncing or singing that on stage, and NWA music is good, so people would have got into it. That has nothing to do with his performance. And again, I mean, there's nothing really stand out about it. I didn't see anything there. I walked away from that movie thinking about Corey Hawkins, about Jason Mitchell, and neat, Ice Cube's kid was in it. But I mean, I didn't get anything that great out of his performance.
And time. Whew. All right. Yes, please, everyone, take a drink. Catch your breath. Well argued all around. We are going to go to our first judge for this round will be Ryan. So, Ryan, when you are ready, please give us your verdict.
I hate being put in this position. I've seen both these movies. I know both of the performances, but I'm going to do my best to say keep bias out of the way. Oh, wow. You guys argued really hard. You guys really did go for the throat for both actors' performances, especially Kirk going after O'Shea Jackson. Although Grant did take most of your bump away when you kept saying he's just imitating his dad, and his point that acting is imitation is mostly correct. Yeah, and also, I don't want to keep dragging out time here, man. It's just so much. Ultimately, you spent most of the time. You did bring up a few good points on Anne, but you were more 70% on O'Shea attacking him, which would have hurt Grant, but he did punch back a couple of times. So, oh God. Okay, I'm giving this to Grant. I'm giving it to Grant because he, other than defending, he did bring up good points that helped elevate why O'Shea did a great job. Especially, I'm just gonna stop here, man. There's just so many thoughts going in my head.
All right, so your vote was for Grant?
It's for Grant. Yes, it's for Grant.
Just had to follow that. All right, so we have one for Grant. We're going to go to myself next, so that way I have a use. All right. Well argued all around. I agree. I was kind of waiting for Kirk to say that that O'Shea was just sort of imitating his father, and it was the first thing he said out of the gate. And then Grant immediately slapped it down. And that acting is imitation. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right, man. What I did not hear Grant slap down is the fact that O'Shea is overshadowed in the movie, the fact that O'Shea lip syncs through the movie, and the fact that Anne Hathaway needs less time to achieve more emotional range, and not only through her acting, but also through her singing. So I just heard way more points in favor of Anne Hathaway and points that were rebutted against O'Shea, but some that weren't. So my point is going to go to Kirk for this round, and we are going to throw it to Andrea to break the tie.
Okay, I hate being in this position. Actually, tiebreaker. Looking at both arguments, I mostly agree with what Nick said. So I'm gonna have to go with Anne Hathaway on this because although Grant was able to knock the fact that even though he was imitating Dad, it was still it was still giving a performance, but I can't overlook the fact that you were knocked down with the musicality of it all. That it might have been lip sync, it might have been it might have been a lip sync performance. In musicals, it usually is supposed to be sung by the actor or actress live or at least recorded by them. So I'm going to have to go with Anne Hathaway on this one.
All right, and that is 2 points for Kirk. Grant still looking to get on the board, but perhaps he can do it with our last question in the main round. And after this, we may need to go to a speed round, at which point I will explain the rules of the speed round. But for now, we have a really well-worded, well-thought-out question. I really like this question. I don't know the players' answers, so I'm excited to hear them. But the question is, what well-known director from the years 1939 to 1969 would you send to present day to have their film vision be better realized with today's technology? So we started with Kirk in the last round. Grant, whenever you begin talking, your 90-second opening will begin.
Okay. So the person that I've got is Akira Kurosawa, probably noted as one of the world's greatest films and stories that hold up to this day. The only reason why this guy hasn't done any more from his huge vast thing is he was limited by technology, not by his imagination. Unlike my opponent's choice, which I'll get into in a little bit, Akira Kurosawa, wouldn't matter what decade, what year, what century you put him in. If he was shooting on a potato, he would still make a great film.
All right. Sounds great. Kirk, whenever you begin, 90 seconds.
When I first heard this question, I started going over my head and over, what may at first glance seem to be the obvious answers, like Cecil B. DeMille, David Lean, maybe Alfred Hitchcock. But every time I hit one of these classic directors and I thought about bringing them to current time and having them use our technology, the first I thought, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see them come out of their time and come here, because the time frame these guys were working in, the era we're talking about, the lack of technology forced an ingenuity and a creativity from these directors that we never saw from anybody else, in later years. And it gave these movies character and charm and personality that you don't see with technology they're using today. So instead of going with none of the above, which is kind of against the spirit of the question, I didn't want to do that. I said, hey, let's go with somebody like Ed Wood. Let's give it to a guy who maybe isn't the most talented director in the world, definitely isn't the most talented director in the world, isn't a talented director, but he does have a big imagination. Let's give him a new playground to mess around in and work in and see what he does with it. He's probably not going to make good movies, but it'll at least probably be interesting, and we won't tarnish the legacy of a great director. So my pick is Ed Wood.
All right, two very interesting picks. Two picks I'm excited to hear more about. So, gentlemen, unless anyone wants to use their minute extension, please speak now or forever hold your peace. And we will begin once one of you begins talking. 5 minutes.
Grant, when I heard your choice, it made my stomach hurt. The idea of bringing Kurosawa away from where he was and bringing him now and giving him whatever you want to give him here and changing a single frame of his perfect movies made my stomach hurt. I don't know what in his movies that you would want to change, what you think could be improved by technology. His movies, he admitted himself, he said his movies were about character, they're about people, they're about the heart. There was nothing he needed technology-wise to improve on that. So I'm not sure where you're going with this, to be honest.
Well, if you're saying that that made your stomach hurt, the fact of the matter is that we've got to talk about Ed Wood and Kurosawa in the same sentence. It makes my head hurt. You're talking about a guy in yours who is inept as a director. The biggest problem that you have is you think that you can improve. You can make someone better by giving them better things. You could give me the greatest violin in the world. I'm still going to play like shit. It's the same thing. Doesn't matter what technology you give this guy. This guy had access to some of the best technology of his time and props and everything. He didn't care. Stuff fell over. Sound wasn't recorded properly. He just doesn't care. He had no art form. So it doesn't matter how much you bring. Grant,
let's be clear here. I am shoving Ed Wood in front of the bullet you were firing at Kurosawa. That's why Ed's here. Why Ed Wood is here. He is here to keep Kurosawa from turning into just giving him. Let's talk about Kurosawa. Let's talk about some of the great classic practical effects this guy used. Kurosawa. Let's talk about the end of Throne of Blood, the volley of arrows. I don't know how many of you guys have seen this. There's a scene at the end of Throne of Blood where Toshiro Mifune stands in while actual archers shoot arrows at him. And he was terrified, but he trusted Kurosawa enough to do it, and that terror comes through in his performance. Are we just going to make those digital arrows? Or how about the big blood spray, the classic blood spray at the end of Sanjuro?
Didn't say anything about remaking movies. With the technology that he can have, he can get in deeper. You're giving someone who had limited technology and huge amounts of ingenuity doing. You give him just that little bit of extra, and you're automatically assuming that he won't be able to do something that we haven't seen before, or won't be able to shine. That's Ed Wood you're talking about. That's going to do it.
Ed Wood is going to make bad movies. Maybe they'll be entertaining. Maybe they'll be just bad and forgettable. But at least we're not tarnishing Kurosawa's.
Giving him new technology is tarnishing. You're bringing up this thing about tarnishing. What's going to be tarnished by giving someone? Look
at George Lucas, James Cameron,
Lucas is
Steven
Kurosawa.
Spielberg.
You're using the same.
You have all these. You look at these.
It's a false equivalency. I'm shutting that down. That's a false equivalency.
It's not equivalent because you look at those guys. Those are the guys who worked during the big technology boom we've seen. They worked without it and they worked with it, and every single one of them was better without it. Kurosawa worked till the late 90s. He worked in the era of Terminator 2. He worked in the era of Jurassic Park. If he wanted to make a big technological movie, he could have done it. He was making movies when Kubrick was making 2001. If he wanted to make one of those movies, he could have did it. He didn't want to. That wasn't the kind of movie he made.
It's not about who he wants to make. It's about what vision could be
I'm-
improved?
I'm gonna-
What could be better? You give someone who's really good better tools, they will make a better product. He understands. He is the.
That's
he's
not
the,
true. Are you telling me Avatar is better than Terminator? Are you telling me that Phantom Menace is better than Empire Strikes Back?
Again.
No, I'm not. You're saying that better technology it makes for better films, and it absolutely does not.
I said you give him the better. You give someone who has the ability and the imagination of Kurosawa better tools. He will make something better.
You think technology is going to make something better than Seven Samurai? You think technology is going to make something better than Rashomon?
In the hands of Kurosawa, absolutely.
That's ridiculous. Let me read.
How is it ridiculous?
I'm going to read you a quote from Kurosawa right now. Regarding American cinema, I could say that much better films were made in the past. Today's American cinema provides the wrong service to the audience. Violent and car crashes are often seen. What pleasure is there watching these scenes? Old American films express human problems quite well, but these days American cinema has problems. There's no doubt that a film like Jurassic Park is interesting, but there used to be more impressive films in the past. In contrast, films like those of Kiarostami touch the heart and are very beautiful. These new sci-fi action films are good, but they're not cinema. Grant, he did not want the technology you're trying to put in his hands. Ed Wood, on the other hand, would eat it up with a spoon. He would make something probably bad, but would be something interesting.
Whether he wants it or not, it's about the question: who would do it better?
You know better than Kurosawa. Would he need to make a good movie?
Apparently you do.
He knew what he wanted. I just read you that quote. He had what he wanted. He didn't want the technology you're trying to force on him.
Women's clothes. So what difference does that have to make to do with it? He had an opinion on that. It's about what.
Yeah, it's Kurosawa's opinion.
Guys, time. Breathe. Time.
Well, getting heated up in here, and I do appreciate it. So let's keep that heat going. We're going to go into your 60-second closings. Grant, I believe you opened. So, Kirk, whenever you're ready, please give us your 60-second closing.
Guys, I'm not saying I'm excited about the movie Ed Wood's going to make. Like I said, I'm shoving him in front of the bullet that Grant is firing at Kurosawa. He wants to give him technology that Kurosawa does not want, so I guess Grant knows better than Kurosawa what Kurosawa needs to make movies. Kurosawa's films were about heart. They were about people. When they did call for effects, there are some of the most beautiful, classic effects, practical effects of the 20th century in Kurosawa's films. Wonderful cinematography, effects, everything. Those films do not need to change. Over his career, he expressed his vision all different kinds of ways. Bringing him to now, do you guys want to see Seven Samurai? The Seven Samurai Special Edition? I don't. We don't need that. That's not what we're looking for. Kurosawa made the films. He was perfectly happy in the 50s, 60s making those films. When he got to the 90s and he had the technology available to him, he did not want it. That was not his vision. We're talking about expressing their vision. That technology is not Kurosawa's vision.
All right, and time. And Grant, whenever you're ready.
Can I use my extra minute?
Okay. So we have 120 seconds, also known as 2 minutes. Grant, whenever you're ready.
All right. So Kira will benefit from the new technology because he has the ability to be able to adapt. He saw what was around in the 80s and in the early 90s, and he didn't like what that was. That's 30 years. The innovations in film and technology have gone there. I never mentioned anything about CG. He kept going on about CG and about remaking the exact same scenes, but with CGI arrows, false equivalencies. He put up a quote about something that he said in the early 90s that had nothing to do with the actual question. His thoughts on it are irrelevant. We're talking about what one would be best utilized. What he says to do, it has nothing to do with it. Like I said, I said the quote, I like to wear women's clothes. Ed Wood said that. It has no bearing on the argument whatsoever. It's the same sort of fallacies and falsehoods that he's putting in there. You give someone who knows what they're doing the tools to do something that you can't imagine, and they will do it. He has the ability to do it. Ed Wood doesn't. You give Ed Wood $1 billion and all the technology in the world to do something great, and he will still find a way of fucking it up because he lacks the one thing, quality in his own work. He does not self-censor anything. Everything is just good enough to go. He makes Neil Breen look like freaking Steven Spielberg. I mean, we're talking about a guy who doesn't matter what you give him, he will fail. Because you know why? He consistently did it.
every time they kept doing stuff to him. He had freaking Bela Lugosi in there, and it made him have the worst performance of his freaking life. Doesn't matter what he's given, he throws it away. And that's the reason why Kurosawa has to win this.
Time. All right. A minute well spent, I must say. Very great arguing. Afterwards, you two need to hug, make up in any way, but it is very heated right now, and I like it. So, just because I can, I'm going to go to myself first for the judging, and also because, if you haven't noticed, we're doing a bit of a rotation kind of thing. So I am first for this question. Kirk, I'm a huge fan of disliking a question and arguing essentially for like none of the above. I do it a lot. I'm kind of a fan of it. However, for this specific question, I kind of wish you picked a better director because I get what you're saying about Kurosawa, and I actually sort of agree with it. But basically, at the end of the day, what I heard is if those two directors came into today, we're going to have one director that's definitely going to make bad films, and we're going to have one that maybe makes worse films than he did in the past, but still a master director who's much better than Ed Wood, who would use the technology to his advantage. So while I appreciated the thought, I really did, and the approach at the argument, I'm actually going to go with Grant for this one. So let's go to Andrea second.
I actually have the same sort of opinion as you. I'm gonna have to go with Grant as well. Basically because he was able to show me a little bit more about how Kurosawa could benefit from the technology today, whereas I needed more of that from the arguments made with Ed Wood.
For update, we have Kirk with 2, Grant with 1. That means, ladies and gentlemen, we are headed to the speed round. And here's how the speed round works. For the first round of the speed round, I will give you a question. I'm going to read the question twice. At the end of the second time of me reading the question, please say your name to buzz in. Whoever says their name first will pick their answer. It's going to be about 5 seconds after you say your name. So you say your name. I'm going to count down for 5. You got to have an answer by then.
Did you say you read twice?
I'm going to read the question twice. So please wait until I finish it the second time. Here's how the first round will work. We will have 30-second openings. Then we will have 15-second rebuttals for the first round of the speed round. So if both of you are ready, here is the first speed round question. What is the worst Keanu Reeves performance? I say again, what is the worst Keanu Reeves performance?
Grant.
Okay, Grant.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay, and then Kirk.
Devil's Advocate.
Oh, dude.
All right. So Grant, you went first. When you begin, 30 seconds.
All right, Bram Stoker Dracula is the worst performance by Keanu Reeves. He even stated it himself. The director stated it. He speaks in this language which we don't know if it's English or what it is. It's hard to believe that there was a film where he was more wooden than, say, the trees that he was surrounding in. Everything about his performance is lackluster. He even says it's one of his biggest regrets that he didn't take it seriously. So when an actor doesn't take a role seriously, it shows in the quality of their performance.
All right. Kirk, 30 seconds.
The performance of Bram Stoker's Dracula is at least kind of interesting and gives you something to like watch and think about and consider why he was making those choices. Devil's Advocate, he's just flat and boring, and he also uses a very bad accent in this movie. He's sleep-rocking through this movie as well, overshadowed by a scenery-chewing El Pacino, and it's just it's a flat, wooden, boring performance.
2 and 1. All right. Back to Grant. Grant, when you begin, you'll have 15 seconds.
The only reason why you're basically saying that his performance in your one was worse was because of the scene stealing. You literally just made your own argument for me. It wasn't that he was so bad. It was just that Al Pacino took up so much. Bram Stoker's Dracula, that performance, it's cringy. He can't even watch it himself. He hates it that much. There's absolutely no reason why.
Time.
Sorry, Ryan.
That's okay.
All right. Kirk, you're going to have 15 seconds once you start talking.
It's not just the scenes still in his scenes with Charlize Theron, everybody else in that movie. Very dull, very boring, bad accent. Bram Stoker is fun. He fits in with the rest of the cast. There's a lot going on to distract you from how bad it is. With Devil's Advocate, you're drilled in on him the whole time, and what a poor job he's doing in that movie.
Time.
Whew. All right. Andrea, we're going to you first.
For this first round, I'm gonna have to go with Grant because because of the fact that even Keanu Reeves can't watch his own movies, like kind of it shows you how bad it is and how much the actor himself hates it. So I'm gonna have to go with Grant's argument on this one.
All right. One for Grant and on to Ryan.
Yeah, this one's going to Grant. Kirk, you didn't give more reason why his performance in Devil's Advocate was worse. If you had maybe used your opening instead of to downtrot to talk more about Bram Stoker, if you used your 30 seconds to talk more about Devil's Advocate, it would have worked towards your favor. So this one's going to Grant.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all tied up. This is as exciting as it gets. We are on to the last speed round question, and here's how the last speed round question is going to work. You are going to get a 30-second opening where I believe you may only talk about your film. And then you will have 2 rebuttal rounds, one of 20 seconds and one of a very quick 10 seconds. So once I read the question, I will read the question twice. Please buzz in with your name, and then you will have about 5 seconds to give me your answer. So, is everyone ready?
Yep.
Gentlemen, here is your question. What is the best superhero movie to introduce to non-comic book fans? I say again, what is the best superhero movie to introduce to non-comic book fans?
Kirk. Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming. Grant.
X-Men.
X-Men. The first X-Men.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Kirk, whenever you're ready, you will have 30 seconds for Spider-Man Homecoming.
If you're introducing a non-fan to these movies, you need something relatable. There's no character more relatable than Spider-Man. He's in various relatable situations. He's got family. He's got school. He's a kid. They even said itself, it's very much based on like the high school movies of the 80s. Everybody can relate to that, living through that. And that's you really have that. X-Men has a lot of baggage with it. X-Men it's pretty nerdy. If you have a non-fan who's afraid of that, a lot of baggage, a lot to get through, and it's not as relatable as Spider-Man. That's definitely what you're looking for in a when you're introducing a fan.
All right, Grant. 30 seconds when you start talking.
The best movie to introduce non-comic book and non-superhero fans is X-Men. It's an ensemble cast, but at its core, it deals with real life, real world issues. Racism, wanting to have a family, being alone. These are traits that aren't just to do with everyday sort of people, but also it humanizes superheroes. No one can relate to a 14, 15-year-old boy with incredible superpowers, but everyone will be able to find that one X-Men that's much similar to them and can draw them into it, because at the end of the day, they are people pals.
All right. Kirk, when you start talking, you'll have 20 seconds.
Grant, every point you just made for X-Men applies to Spider-Man twofold. The family, the not fitting in, the being like us. Spider-Man is so much more relatable, even though maybe you're not a 15-year-old now, but at some point you were, and you lived through all the things he's going through. You get all his things. X-Men it's very heady. There's a lot of ideas being thrown at you. It's a decent movie, but it's not a good first movie to bring somebody in.
All right, back to Grant for 20 seconds.
X-Men shows everyone what it's like to feel different and everything, and building there. And the question is, what's the best one to introduce to someone? And the problem is, you're introducing someone to a film that's 18 films into a franchise. You're getting them smack bang in the story. The X-Men starts from the beginning and it goes all the way through. So if no one's ever seen it or knows what's going on, they get the full understanding. You don't get that with Spider-Man.
All right, this last round's going to go very quick, gentlemen. You'll each have 10 seconds. So Kirk, once you start, 10 seconds.
Other than Tony Stark, Spider-Man doesn't have that much roots in the MCU. It's easy to figure out, much more relatable than X-Men. You get that feeling of what it's like to be a superhero as a real person, not this big giant figure with all these weird, crazy powers.
And Grant, on to you.
Ensemble has diversity. There's more people in there. And in Spider-Man and Homecoming, they constantly make reference to previous films, so you have to know what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the lurch. X-Men, start to finish, full-fledged film. Best one to do.
Time.
Whew. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the battling of this movie Battleground. And now the fate lies in the hands of our judges. We're going to go to our judge, Ryan, first to make the first decision.
Oh, wow. Oh, crap. Okay. Jeez, so much. I didn't take notes, so I'm going to go after that. Really good choices here. Good choices. Grant, you did make a good point that X-Men is the first in a series to be introduced to, countering Kirk's choice of Spider-Man Homecoming, but there are people. No, wait, hold on. This is going to be a personal thing. But there have been reviews I have come across where people who have done Marvel movies say it's their first time watching it. But, that's hearsay or never. That's too much of a.
Neither here nor there, I guess.
Yeah, neither here nor there. That was a good point. Although Kirk does talk about how this movie, he does bring more into the relatability of a character, regardless of what age you are. Just seeing that the focal point of Peter and the issues he goes across of. So it brings more into the relatability side. Grant, I didn't get more. I wanted to hear more on the diversity of the cast. So I'm going with Kirk on this one.
All right. We have one in favor of Kirk. We're going to move to myself next to make the next and possibly final decision. Let's see. I heard a lot of really good things. I heard a lot of things that wound up sort of being moot due to the other person's argument at the end of it. And I gotta say, I think the biggest punch that was thrown was the fact that one of these movies is 18 films into a franchise. And even Kirk, even admitted, like, other than Iron Man, well, and then Grant said, but there's also other references. So to get into that, and then to have an ensemble cast where maybe you don't relate to Spider-Man, but there's probably an X-Man out there you'll relate to. So I'm actually going to give my point for this final round to Grant, and I'm going to leave it in the hands of our third judge, Andrea. I'm so sorry to do this to you, but this is on you.
Why me? Sorry. Why me? Why do I have to do this? This is tough. God. Okay. Based on the arguments, I would have to go with. I'm so sorry, Kirk, but I have to go with Grant because he was able to give me more points on how the X-Men is relatable. Although you're able to show me how, for example, Spider-Man was able to is relatable, but you focus more on that, whereas Grant showed how the X-Men humanizes superheroes and the diversity of or inclusion, which is I think it's actually very close, but I guess those points gave Grant the edge on this fight, so I'm gonna have to go with Grant.
Yeah, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. It is the comic book lad himself, Grant Gregory, in a very impressive comeback and a very impressive match all around. Let's go to our winner for the day first. Grant, how are you feeling after that fight?
I feel like I've been beaten up underwater. Yeah, it's. I mean, it'd be much easier if I didn't like Kurt. I gotta. I mean, he has beaten me in other things before, so I guess it's nice to get one back. So, but yeah, no, I was a bit of a slow starter. Yeah, I think I would have been. I think I would have been more upset if I lost that third round question. Even if I won the match and I lost that one, I would have felt like that was a loss. But no, Kurt's very very passionate. He's very knowledgeable. Yeah, don't look forward to being in another match with him because it's very exhausting. And yeah, I just think that he picked out of the last thing. I think it came down. He picked the better of the two films, and that's what ended up costing him the match.
All right. Well, we all wish you the best of luck in your career moving forward, Grant. But let's go to our unfortunate loser for the day. Very determined, and I'm sure this will not stop him in his tracks. Kirk, the consigliere Kowalkowski. Kirk, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling about same way Grant is. That was a battle, and I respect him, man. I love the my last fight. I was fighting a rookie, and he was a little more passive. I love that that Grant didn't back down, and he brought it, and we were able to nip at each other there. That Karasar argument. Hey, you know what, guys? You want to tarnish his legacy? That's between you and the Lord. That's I can't say anything about that there. And that last fight, I thought I had it, and as soon as he brought out the MCU, I knew it was over. He killed me there, and I just was kicking myself. I knew that was what was gonna do me in. So I should have went with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. But hey, you know what? Live and learn. I'll take this, and the mistakes I made here, I will definitely build off that. And whoever I fight next, look out, because I'm going to be hungry for that next win.
Indeed, you will be. The greatest of champions have all lost at one point or another, so please do not stay down. We all look forward to seeing you back. Let's go very quick for some closing thoughts from our judges. Andrea, how did you feel about the fight overall?
This is, I think, one of the closest fights I've ever had to judge ever. And actually, it's really kind of hard for me to decide that last question. I haven't been in that situation before, and I'd have to tell you, it's really tough to be the deciding one on who wins and who loses on these things. So, yeah, it's a great job for both Kirk and Grant. I congratulate you both. It was an awesome fight, let me tell you, and I can't wait for the next one that you two face each other, and I hope I get to judge again.
All right, well, you did great, Andrea. We appreciate you being here. Ryan, what did you think of the match overall?
Oh, this is like the second time I've judged a match that's gone into the speed round, although not as close as this one. I mean, if I will be honest, if that third question had not come up, I would have thought this would have been Kirk's match. But oh yeah, Kurt, you want to take that more high ground, go for it. But I thought this was purely fantasy. I thought this was like a fantasy booking kind of debate here. But that's hearsay. But you guys did a really fantastic job. I had a hard time keeping track of both of you during the debate portions, also keeping track of time, which actually wanting to cut you guys off made it much easier to judge. But no doubt, you guys are fantastic. Even if it's not in another movie Battleground, I would love to judge another match you guys are going to be participating in. This is very, very good. I just hope I don't have to face either one of you guys moving forward.
Indeed, I agree with all the sentiments that have been expressed. We will see both of you again, and everyone definitely looks forward to it, especially after the show you put on today. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another very, very exciting episode of an alliteration-filled movie Battleground. If you didn't get it, Kirk Kowalkowski, Grant Gregory, both their names are alliteration. Thought I'd explain it to end the day. Thank you for joining us today, and you have a great one. We'll see you next time on Movie Battleground.